the 60-40 arrangement, in which 60% of the students at the upper division level in the University of California and the state colleges and universities were supposed to come from they were supposed to have 60% of the students in the upper division and 40% in the lower division, which meant that you were relying very heavily on transfers from the community colleges. Now, there are other elements in the plan. I think those are the basic ones. Some of the other elements have not worked as well. The portions of the plan that strove to make it possible for costs to be reduced, to become more efficient, have not worked nearly as well as they might, and I think need looking into. I have, as those again who know me might expect, a few things I want to say about where we are now, although that's supposed to be the purview of another panel. Let me say, first of all, I don't think the major problems that we are confronting today are a result of inadequacies of the master plan, or the fact that the master plan has grown outdated. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be looked at. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at carefully. And if there are better ways to do things, they need to be implemented. But the problems we're facing today are not problems that are created by deficiencies in the master plan, in my opinion. They are created by 2 or 3 issues which I think need to be looked at by this committee or by others. One is that the K through 12 system is not producing the students who are wanting to go on and able to go on to any segment of higher education in California. The chair read a statistic about the reduction in the percentage of students who go on from high school to higher education. That's not been, at least until now, that has not been because there has not been a place for them. It has been because they have not come out of, in the first place, many are not coming out with high school diplomas, and those who are coming out with high school diplomas are not well, have not been prepared well to partake of higher education in any of the systems. And the second is funding. Access has been provided and has not been limited in the last 50 years, but it is limited now. And the reason it is limited is because of lack of funds for all of the systems of higher education in California. I don't know what the number is, but as I total up what I hear from various sources, the numbers of students that are being turned away from the community colleges, from the state colleges and universities, and from the University of California, were turned away this year and will be turned away next year, is enormous. It runs into tens of thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of students. That's never happened before. And it's not happening because of weakness in the master plan. It's happening because of lack of funding for higher education. The problem of access is also, although many people believe to the contrary, not in the last 50 years been because of the cost of higher education. That has been dealt with. There is a problem at the present time. We don't know what the dramatic increase in fees and tuition that has just been adopted and will be adopted is going to have. Heretofore, it has had very little effect on turning people away because it has been, those increases have been accompanied with very generous support for financial aid. And having spent a bit of my life in this business and studying the data very carefully, it's very clear that the most important factor in providing the ability for people financially to attend a university, a state college and university campus, or a community college is financial aid, not low tuition. There is a problem, however, in that the way the legislature has addressed the issue, over the last 20 years especially, is that they have put money into the university and state college system not to provide for an improved quality or to maintain quality but to lower tuition costs. So they do that for several years, and then all of a sudden you reach the crisis like the one we have arrived at now, and it goes up 30%. And it's the 30% increase that's the problem. If it had gone up 5% a year over the last 20 years, we'd be in a very different situation. Now, I'm not advocating larger tuition, but I am saying that it is extremely important to continue to provide, through all means whatsoever, financial aid for the students who are wanting to attend any of the systems of higher education. And secondly, I think some very great attention needs to be paid, as a political scientist I'm saying this, and as a professor of public policy, to some structural problems which are creating the financial crisis and other crises in the state of California. One is something that was introduced by Governor Hiram Johnson back in the 1911-1912, and that is the initiative and referendum. The initiative and referendum is a good thing in general, but it needs to be controlled so that legislation and government is not being done through the legislation, through the initiative and referendum process. The revenues of the state of California are so allocated and so strictly dealt with through initiative and referendum processes that it's almost impossible for you as members of the Assembly and Senate and the governor to deal with appropriations in a reasonable fashion. The second is term limits. The third is the segment of Proposition 13 that created the 2/3 mandate in both houses for passage of any legislation dealing with financing. And the fourth has been, I think, the method of districting, which has created safe districts and made it very difficult for the Republicans and Democrats to come together these days, as they used to do back when John and I were working together early on in our careers. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that concludes what I have to say today, and I appreciate very much the opportunity to present my comments to you.
Thank you, Chancellor. I appreciate that.